Hey, viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist, and welcome back to Sir Being Hunted, episode 755, ladies and gentlemen. So, back for another podcast-style episode and all that, because I need to record a bit of Sir, just to go into the queue. Now, I've actually been recording, well, it's a Sunday, and I've been recording some Let's Watch for Propagandist at the moment, of my retrospective non-blind Ruby stuff that I'm doing for volumes 1 and 4. So, I've been having a good time on that front. Why are you here? Straight off the bat, Mr. Hound, wherever you're at, go and run off to whatever patrol you're trying to join. Thank you very much. And leave me right be as I try and find the final device piece on this island. Now, ladies and gentlemen, something actually interesting that I've become aware of very, very recently. I was actually on YouTube yesterday, day before I record this. Fuck it, I'll date the video. It's Sunday the 29th of June, though by the time this video goes out it'll be early July. But yeah, the day before I recorded this, I was on YouTube and looking at, videos that it was recommending to me, when I came across a few random clips from a Crunchyroll original animation by the name of High Guardian Spice. Now, I don't know, have I ever talked about High Guardian Spice before on anywhere on my channel, whether in a podcast episode or anywhere else? I don't think I have, but some of you probably already recognise the name. Those of you, who follow Crunchyroll and who have been over on there and watched anime and that kind of thing that you have on that site may well be aware of High Guardian Spice. You've probably heard of it before. And the moment I mentioned the name, you probably all collectively groaned and were like, uh-oh, Red, what did you see? Well, for anyone who doesn't know, High Guardian Spice was a animated show. I think it was, like I say, an original made for Crunchyroll show. And I think it was, did it start airing in 2021? Just basically before COVID hit. And I always remember, during the production of it, there was a lot of criticism of it before it had even come out. So the criticism I noticed sort of fell into two camps. There were, how should I say, the quote-unquote anti-woke reactionary culture warriors who immediately derided the show on the basis of, oh, it looks very woke, therefore I immediately don't like it. Which, I always say, don't take those people too seriously, right? If you're going to dislike a show, just dislike it on the basis of it having progressive themes is, I think, personally, a pretty poor excuse to dislike something. But then there's the other camp of critics who very much fall into the, I say, slightly more legitimate and valid camp of people who have criticised it for aspects of the writing and other aspects of its creative direction. And so recently, like I say, I was recommended these clips from this show. And I decided, out of curiosity, because I've never watched High Guardian Spice, and I'm aware of obviously a lot of the sort of anti-woke reactionary criticism that it garnered, and the negative reviews that it also typically really heavily faced, that kind of thing. But of course, as is so often the case with a lot of these things, you can't really take what a lot of people on the internet say at face value. You've got to sort of, look into it for yourself and all that. And that's what I did when I watched these clips, because I was like, okay, you never know. It might turn out, actually, to be one of those things where people on the internet have completely overblown the criticisms of it in typical internet fashion, and actually, when you separate out those criticisms, you're still left with something that is semi-decent. So I watched these clips, and I hate to say it, but, nah. If those clips are anything to go by, they do not sell High Guardian Spice to me as something worth watching. Basically, here's the thing I'll say about it. I'm not, obviously, an expert of animation and visual aesthetics, that kind of thing, but irrespective of that, I still felt that visually the show looks pretty enough. Like, if you look at pictures of it, you can't help but sort of deny that it is pretty and cute to look at, which is fine. But like I say, I'm not an animation expert, so if there are issues with that visual aesthetic or with the animation style, anything like that, then I'm sure people who are a bit more knowledgeable about that kind of thing can probably let me know in the comments, you know. But visual aesthetics aside, it's when the characters in the show started to open their mouths that immediately sort of switched me off. And I think the issue is writing. That's the main problem with High Guardian Spice, from what I saw of it in those clips. Basically, just some of the characters, the things they say just feel a bit, I don't know, stilted, kind of forced, contrived, not like the sort of things that people would actually say in real life. It's just sometimes the general attitude of them in the way they say things.
It's been fun, Aster, but yeah.
Wow, son, we need to have a word.
And then there's other characters who it sometimes feel like the VAs don't really want to be there, it sounds almost like, to put it that way. And then there's other characters. There's like a character who apparently is called Slime Boy, who sounds like they basically just pulled someone in off the street. Not saying he gives a bad performance, the VA behind this character, but it sounds kind of like they pulled someone in off the street, and it sounds like they need to give him a better microphone. I may see if I can record and insert a few clips throughout this, so that you can actually see what I'm talking about.
I hope it's treating you well. Anyway, sorry. I just came in here to cry. No, I was just gonna practice a crying song I wrote. Oh, it's all on the wrist of your brain. I have to demonstrate it a lot at the store.
But, yeah, it was just overall one of those things where it was like, who talks like this in real life? What is with these characters? It's all very bizarre. I mean, one of the clips actually that I did see particularly was this scene where basically High Guardian Spice is set in like a school, as is the case with a lot of anime. It's kind of a fantasy genre, so it's like the main character, I think, is training to be sort of like a warrior, and then some of her friends are training to be things like a wizard and other things like that, or a spellcaster or whatever. And so they go to the school, and there's a scene with the main character, her friends, and a load of other students standing in a hallway with these three women who I presume are senior teaching staff, looking down and giving them a speech. And like, these three women are, I guess they're supposed to be kind of like maybe sisters or something, I'm not sure. One of them's young, one's middle-aged, and one's old. Basically, one's a granny. And the granny character, at first, is kind of quirky and humorous because she has a bit of sass, but then the problem is, and this kind of really illustrates maybe the writing issue with it, she kind of takes the same joke and then sort of just beats it to death for too long, to put it that way. And as a result, it kind of goes flat after a few seconds.
As it is your first day
Of school, in case you forgot.
over the course of 3 years.
Or 4, or 9, if you're that one kid. Only disorientation.
We want each of you to write your own version of the Guardian Vows.
Which will be wrong.
Speak from your deep heart's core.
Blah, blah.
Please be sure to do so before dinner time.
Or don't. Drop out, like Doyle. Oh, Doyle!
So I think that was a good kind of example of, perhaps the writing problems with that show. But yes, like I say, I'll try and put some clips in, if I remember, just to show you a few examples of the sort of things I was watching and all that. And, but it got me thinking, though, that, I feel like, having been the sort of person who sometimes, on occasion, has watched the odd Saberspark video on YouTube, High Guardian Spice is not the only animation out there that's coming for some serious ribbing and criticism recently. It reminds me as well, in fact, one that, if you follow Saberspark, that channel, you probably know exactly about this one. Wasn't there a spin-off animated series in recent years based on Scooby-Doo? And I think it was called Velma. I think it was by somebody called Mindy Kaling, I think. And by all accounts, Velma is absolutely terrible. It's badly written, just in the sense of everything I've seen of it, from clips, from commentary on YouTube, is that the Velma character in it is so just unlikable, the way she's written, and that it basically it absolutely butchers the Scooby-Doo characters of the original, animated series. It basically just changes them completely to the point where you look at the show and you think, Why have they got this veneer of Scooby-Doo on it? Like, these are not the Scooby-Doo characters. These are just a bunch of weird imposter characters wearing their skins, kind of, to put it that way. And so there's that, that's another big example in recent years of something that just, the moment it came out, I think it went, well, actually even before it came out, I think it was going downhill, because everyone was just sort of looking at it thinking, what on earth is this? And so, like I say, I think the reason these shows suffer ultimately is because of their writing, the way they're just put together, and the way their characters sometimes are difficult to really relate to. Thing is, it's a shame really, because some of these shows, I feel like, with the correct kind of writing, they could be really good. Or with better writing, I shouldn't say the correct type of writing, because that implies, there's like one way of doing things when actually there isn't. But with, I think, better writing, I think they could. These are the kind of shows that could do really well. And like I say, I don't think the reason they're bad is because of progressive ideals at all. I know some people on the internet think it's fashionable to sort of bash anything woke and say, it's going to be shit. But I honestly don't agree with that. I think that sometimes actually progressive ideals and themes in a show can really sort of challenge the viewer to think. I think what matters is how you handle those themes and how you sort of bring them across to the reader in a way that doesn't feel either like preachy, or that you're kind of patronising them, anything like that, or that you're like beating them over the head with it. Subtlety, I think, is what I'm basically getting at there as being the thing that can make that kind of writing really, really good. Because the thing is, like, progressive ideals and values and themes, when you think about, why it is that they are beneficial sometimes in stories, well, the reason is because progressivism, when you think about it as a movement, I wouldn't say as an ideology, because that implies there's like one singular vision or narrative, whereas actually there's lots of different progressivisms throughout history, promoting different ideas and things like that, which are just, we just tend to lump them together under the progressive banner because they share certain characteristics. But progressive ideals, obviously, throughout history, were often formed in response to what were perceived to be stultifying, more conservative attitudes, which could often result in certain ways of doing things that were not always the best, or which often sometimes resulted in certain, for example, marginalised groups being treated unfairly. And so, progressivism emerged as a way of challenging that and saying, look, why are we doing things in this way when actually we can see it's causing problems, it might be causing suffering, that kind of thing. So progressive, ideas came about in order to basically try and promote the idea that we can better ourselves. There's an alternative way of doing things whereby we can try and alleviate people's suffering, and we can try and make people more free, that kind of thing. So progressive ideals in and of themselves are not bad things, and they can make for good devices within a narrative for challenging your reader. So I think, for example, of classic literature like To Kill a Mockingbird, which essentially is all about, in essence, the ingrained racism of a small town in the USA, in the South, and how prejudice kind of wins out over logic and reason, and how how ultimately that's a bad thing. Similarly, you take another big titan of American literature, John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Another one I've encountered in my youth. That's very much about people at the very poor end of the socio-economic spectrum, i.e. people, for example, who work on ranches in the American countryside, and how their lives often are quite hard and in some respects quite brutal. And similarly, John Steinbeck obviously had other ones which had progressive ideas, The Grapes of Wrath, etc., etc. Or you take something like George Orwell's 1984, which is all about authoritarianism and the sheer nastiness of it, the brutality and misery it causes. these are all obviously, you know, stories that ultimately have progressive ideals at their heart, and they're very thought-provoking, and their narratives stand out as a result. They're really, really good. But the beauty of that is that the authors themselves aren't sort of like just telling you what to think. They're showing you the situations unfolding and letting you come to your conclusion. And of course, part of the conclusion you reach, usually from that, is that these ways of life that the characters in these stories are living through are hard and nasty, and that actually maybe there's a better way of doing things, that kind of thing, you know? Essentially is what I'm getting at. Right, Jetty is up here for the East Islands. Let's go this way. So yeah, I suppose the key point I'm trying to make there is that progressivism is not, when it comes to narrative, progressive themes often are really, really good for a story. They make, you know, things more challenging, and they can challenge your reader to really reflect on things that maybe they believe in, or on things that certain societies and cultures at various times believed in, that kind of thing. So there you go, folks. Just a little something to think about, ladies and gents. Just thought it was interesting. I never thought, you know, this morning when I woke up, that I would be doing a Surrey Being Hunted episode where I'd start out talking about silly little forms of Western animation like High Guardian Spice and Velma, and then suddenly from there get into a very brief discussion about progressive themes in fiction and all that. But there you are, you know. It adds a bit of a layer to the discussion, that's all. It's a little bit of depth, that's all it is, ladies and gents, just to think about that. Alright, well, tell you what, let's have a save here. I think I'll probably do for an episode. I'm recording for, 15 minutes at the very minimum there, which I think is about right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll join me for the next part. When I get around to recording that. In the meantime, my social medias and Propagandist channel link can all be found in the video description. As I mentioned earlier, I've been recording Propagandist channel content. If you want to go and watch my retrospective non-blind Let's Watches that I'm undertaking at the moment for Ruby Volumes 1 to 4. I'm currently up to about halfway through Volume 1 as of when I record this. Not as of in terms of how many videos I've uploaded so far on Propagandist, but you know what I mean. Yeah, that might be something that interests you if you want to go and watch that. So yeah, other than that, ladies and gentlemen, leave a like if you enjoyed and all that. It's always appreciated. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody. This will be great. What's Dice doing? Oh my goodness. Oh, this is just like random stuff, isn't it? Damn, so pretty good. Well, I think we've got that building actually. Ready on that side, anyway. Beginnings of our little town, a few inhabitants. Lovely building. Let's, oh, we do have some different building blocks. It's an interesting one. Apologies if you hear my thingy bomb in the background, by the way. Washing machine. Oh yeah, there was, there's the little dog with the, at the top of the flight of steps. He's pretty awesome. What about this building block here? Start maybe with this one. We'll go in front of these trees over here, do you think, ladies and gents? Or can we, actually?